What does it take to lead in a world that never slows down? Meet David Steele, a business builder, global operator, and marathon running adventurer who's turned personal pain into professional power. He's led teams on 4 continents, built both for-profit and not-for-profit businesses, and developed hundreds of leaders, now thriving in some of the world's largest organisations. He's also a marathon runner, mountain climber, scuba diver, skydiver, stage performer, and father of 3. He's scaled Kilimanjaro, completed marathons and half marathons in over 11 countries, dived 50 metres below the Earth's surface, jumped from planes, swum in sub-zero waters, walked across active volcanoes, run across deserts, played football with David Beckham, and performed in Disney on Ice, as well as in professional theatre. He owns businesses across multiple sectors, made millions, burned millions, and learned from every high and low. Today, as he marks his 50th birthday, he joins us, not to look back, but to share what he's learned, what he's leading next, and how he's preparing for the next 50. David, welcome and happy birthday.
Hey, thanks so much. Yeah, it's certainly a big birthday, that's for sure. But that welcome was a bit more like Bear Grylls.
Could be one and the same, but we'll stick with your birthday at the moment. What does it feel like turning 50 for you?
Oh, look, I suppose less of a celebration and more of a mirror for this birthday. It's not always the kind that flatters, more the kind that's confronting. It doesn't ask for a highlight reel. It asks for truth. And when I looked, I saw someone, yes, that had done a lot, but still had work to do.
You certainly have done a lot. It sounds like, though, some of the biggest shifts were internal.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The turning points came in the quiet and hard moments.
And can you tell us about one?
Yeah, well, the first point of reference would be the 10th of September, 2019. That was the day that I gave up alcohol. Not because I had to, but because I wanted clarity and control back. Unfortunately, that was the day also that I had a stroke. I lost my balance, my speech, my continence. Everything stopped. No meetings, no movement, just stillness. And in that stillness came truth. And then back at the end of 2023 into 2024, there was a year that everything cracked open. I went through a divorce. I hit a low point. Maybe in reality, some of the lowest of my life. There was a stretch where I was scared of my bed. Any bed. I slept in the car for 3 months. Not because I had no home, but because no space felt safe. I suffered from intense insomnia, relentless anxiety, and an unstoppable inner monologue that just wouldn't let me rest. So I'd walk for hours in freezing conditions just to find calm. I hated myself. But for me, rock bottom wasn't the end. I was sure of that. It was the foundation. And I really decided to build from there.
Obviously, this is all quite raw for you. What helped you find your way back?
Oh, look, pain. And then perspective. I realized that reinvention isn't a moment, it's a mindset. So I took myself back to school, back to education, and I earned my MBA with distinction from the University of East London. I graduated at the end of the year, and not for letters after my name, but because I refuse to lead from muscle memory. Does that make sense? I want to lead from the front with relevance, with rigor, and with readiness. Because here's the truth, right? If I believe that if you're still leading the way that you were doing 5 years ago, and I'm going to say 5 years pretty deliberately, not 10 or 15, 5 years ago, you're not leading. You are lagging. And I'm a firm believer that you've got to evolve or you become extinct.
As someone who's as familiar with leading as you are, you must be familiar with that evolving, having worked across 4 continents. What's the common thread in how you lead?
People. Definitely people. People want to be seen. People want to matter. And people want to contribute. So whether you're leading a business in Asia, a brand in Australia, a chain of luxury hotels in Europe, or a project out of hospitality in the US, right? It's always about people. So I've worked with executive teams making billion-dollar decisions. And what I've learned is it's not just the strategy, it's how you show up.
And how do you show up?
Oh, great question. And something I've thought a lot about in the last 12, 18 months, particularly. Humble humility is kind of rock number one. Being present, being adaptable, being connected, being curious, and definitely being inspired. So those have become my personal values, and many people I'm sure will have seen them. The more research I did and the more work I did in the background, the more that I found that they also they were also echoed by the world's most future fit organizations, and the ones that obsess over, well, the things that I talk about: simplicity, they challenge legacy thinking, they lead with purpose, and they build agile and inclusive cultures. They prioritize what I spoke about at the beginning: psychological safety. They empower data-backed, what would you call it, experimentation. Let's call it that, risk-taking. They don't just talk about values. They actually work to operationalize those values. So it's a bit of a long answer, but that's how I lead, and certainly how I want to build from here.
Now, having turned 50 though, what continues to drive you?
Impact, I would say, is important. Presence. And once you get to 50, you've got to start talking about legacy. So I build teams where performance and well-being aren't trade-offs. Does that make sense? You've heard what I've been through, right? But those performance and well-being are more twin engines, where culture isn't something that is just spoken about. It's something where you live. So what are the vital ingredients? Okay, well, feedback is important, that it flows like oxygen. Sounds corny, but it's true. It flows like oxygen. Where egos can be left at the door, outside, because we're not here to lift each other. And we're here to lift each other and not outshine each other.
Clearly, you're someone who cares about giving back, but can you tell us about something you've received that might have been meaningful to you, maybe a gift?
Oh, you see my beaming smile, because it was only yesterday that Rebecca, my partner, surprised me with a fantastic video from the UK, measured in terms of the time difference, with messages from friends, colleagues, and family all over the world. It was one of the most heartwarming things that I've ever received. She also organised handwritten cards and well wishes from every single one, with meaningful content in its own way. It really resonated with me and reminded me that success isn't what you earn. It's about the people that you've touched. It's about how you are remembered.
And what's next for the next 50?
My next chapter, I definitely love Base Camp Everest, but we'll just keep that one on the back burner. But CEO, chief exec, chief operating officer, that's for the next destination for me, not for the title, but to give me that opportunity to operationalize trust, clarity, and culture at scale. That's what I'm after. So turning strategy into rhythm and not just rhetoric. That's important to shape businesses that perform at pace. I think that's really critically important in the modern business world, but don't burn people out. So they create systems that bring back simplicity, breathe clarity into chaos, and let the right work flow. So hopefully, clearly you're hearing from me that I'm not chasing power. I'm creating permission. For permission to be, for people to be great, and for performance to feel human.
We've heard a lot about your thoughts on leading and the teams you have led, but do you have a framework that people could follow?
Yeah, I've had some recent thinking about this, and just in the time we have, maybe I highlight 5 or 6. Right, clarity for me beats certainty. People really need clarity, and I think, often businesses are trying to predict the future. I'm not sure that's necessarily important, but you need to prepare for that, right? But being clear on where we're going and why, even if the how shifts along the way. That'd be my first point. Second one really is about culture again, and culture being the OS. It's the operating system. It's not just the soft stuff. It's the infrastructure. It determines whether your strategy runs or stalls. And I think for that, really, there's a key cornerstone around feedback, and feedback being a rhythm and not a ritual. So not just in a biannual or annual cycle where there's an opportunity to gather feedback, but it's within the day-to-day DNA. Real-time, kind, multi-directional feedback that drives performance whilst building trust. So that should be as natural as breathing, right? Another point, I suppose, would be one that I learned from Simon Thompson, a fantastic leader of Warner in the UK. He always said, fail fast and reflect faster. Speed is nothing without wisdom. So I try to learn quickly, adapt smartly, and keep moving forward, Then I think I have to reference well-being, right? Hearing the journey from start to here. Well-being is an integral part of driving performance. Sustainable performance for me isn't accidental, it's intentional, where the leaders, plural, have got to model balance. That's where teams thrive. And then ego, right? Ego just does not scale. How to put that into simple terms? The best ideas should win, and not, as I've seen in some organizations, the loudest voice. So the best idea should win, not the loudest voice. Leadership is about creating space and not taking up space. So I hope that feels authentic. It's certainly meant to. Those aren't slogans. They're examples of how I show up, how I lead teams, how I take decisions, provide feedback, ultimately, and how I build trust.
Given everything we've heard about you, you're clearly a man beyond business itself. What about coming up in the next 50 years? What have you got beyond business?
God, I love the reference to the next 50. That's great. So, well, I'm the father of 3 sensational kids. Emily, the eldest, then Abby and Charlie or Charlotte. They're all actually really incredible athletes and brilliant superhuman beings. And I consider one of my best friends my ex-wife. That's something I'm super proud of. I'm a proud Scouser at heart and a lifelong Evertonian. So for those of you in Australia, an Everton fan, an improving team. But at the core, I'm somebody that's had to rebuild, relearned, reconnected. And you know what? I'm proud to say I'm only just getting started.
Have you got any final thoughts for us?
Yeah, look, leadership isn't just what you say. I mean, that's important, but it's about what people carry with them when you're not in the room. So if that's clarity, courage, belief, then you've done more than just lead. You've made people believe. And that's really leadership for me.
David Steele, everybody. Still striving, still learning, still leading. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, listen, thanks very much for having me. The best is definitely still to come.